Hello and welcome to Crash Podcast, episode number 12 with Sheldon Souray, a man who we met a few years back, and I am blessed to call not only a cool dude, but a friend of mine.
Mm.
Sheldon, your story is amazing. We hit it off right away. Maybe because I made you some good food, maybe not, whatever. But you and I have shared some stories, shared some time, shared some meetings. And I'm blessed to call you a friend, and I'm so honored that you were willing to do this podcast with me, and go to my listeners. So, if you don't mind, introduce yourself a little bit for those who have no idea who you are.
Sure. Well, I'm Sheldon Souray. Um, I was a professional hockey player for a few years, and you and I had met up in Idaho in maybe 19, somewhere in there, maybe
Yeah.
earlier probably. I remember we connected because I was just starting my sobriety journey, and you'd had a few years, and you just kind of told me I was on the right path and reassured me that sobriety would change my life. And I was kind of in early sobriety where I wasn't sure if you were full of shit or not. I just I couldn't see how my life would be better than my past life, not the using and drinking, but my past life. So I'd met you along the road in early sobriety. I'm Canadian. And when I retired, I think, that's when things really took off for me. I'm sure we'll get into the story, but yeah, that's it. My life has been I thought a fairy tale, and it's gotten better in sobriety. So I don't do too many things anymore where I go on and talk about myself and my story, because it to me it sounds like, nails on a chalkboard. But I think some people still find it interesting. I try to really live in the gratitude part of it now, and the what am I doing now, and not the story part of it. But yeah, I do love talking about sobriety. All my friends are sober. I run in the same circle of people that have the same things in common. Guys who love their wives, guys who talk good about their wives, guys who are protective of their families, guys who are good fathers, guys who believe in God. Like, my life has completely changed, right? And I I would have lost a lot of money had I bet, 10 years ago that this is where I'd be in my life, and this is what I would have gone through, and I'd be in AA. I would have thought you were completely crazy, and here we are. I get to chop it up with you, an old buddy, and relive some of the bad times and a lot of the good times, because I know both our lives have changed quite a bit since we last seen each other.
That is very true. And it's funny that you put it by retelling your story as kind of nails on a chalkboard, because I actually did somebody else's podcast the other day. And near the end of it, I get a little self conscious because I'm supposed to be suppressing my ego. And it feels like I'm inflating it when I'm sitting here
Yeah, that's
talking
right.
about myself.
That's right.
But I got to
Exactly.
remember that I'm telling it for the other person. I'm not telling it for me anymore.
That's
So
right.
that was
It's
one
not
thing that
something
helped me
I'm
get through that.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not sensationalizing for a good story. It's just my story, and it's some people's are a lot more crazy. Robert Downey Jr. has a crazier story than mine. Mine's probably crazier than some, but it doesn't matter. We all live to be here, and I can't help but think of, I could have missed all this. I could have missed being a dad again at, 48 years old. I could have missed getting sober at 44. I mean, just a lot of, man, I'm just so grateful that the life that I thought I wanted wasn't wasn't acceptable anymore.
Yeah, I get it. So let's dig into that. Like, take me back. You said you're from Canada, and so you grew up in Canada. You ended up playing professional hockey. But let's get into the details of that a little bit. So, how did you grow up? And before drugs and alcohol became a part of life, did you start seeing anything early on? Looking
So
backwards.
not this, not really. Here's what I think is important is I grew up on a it's called a Métis settlement. Alberta is the only one in Canada that has seven Métis settlements. It's basically it's an Indian reserve. So I basically grew up on an Indian reserve. Um, my dad was an alcoholic. Uh, my six uncles were alcoholics. Um, a lot of them sober now, three or four of them. So one's passed, didn't get sober, tried to get it, but didn't get it. Um, all my uh, I grew up with around a lot of my uncles were older and they were more my brothers, my older brothers, than they were uncles. My mom's the oldest. I'm the oldest boy in the family. Um, and so all the older people I grew up with were all drinking and using at a young age, and I seen that. And I growing up with an alcoholic dad, my dad wasn't the kind of guy who was coming out and putting, cigarettes out on my feet and beating me around. When he was drinking, he was the guy that I'd go and I'd say, "Hey, Dad, can I have $5?" Because it was a good time to ask him because he was happy, you know.
Yeah.
My dad's problem was that he was a truck driver and he was a pretty simple guy. And, my parents split when I was young and I was with my dad a lot of the time because I was a rambunctious kid, and my mom just I have a sister, and my mom was busy with my sister trying to navigate life that way. So my dad would be gone for a couple days at a time. He was the kind of guy he didn't want the party to end, and he wasn't this hardcore drug addict or anything like that. He was just he was a boozer. He liked to drink, and so when I was young, I didn't want any part of that. Like I felt like I was destined for something. I felt like I was destined to play hockey in the NHL. I felt that from a young age. And now I was a fat kid. I wasn't the best hockey player kid. I wasn't the most committed kid. But somehow I always thought that was I was going to do that. I was going to live that. And so, typically growing up, it was, yeah, man, I played with, I always played kind of a division or two ahead. So I was always playing with guys who were 4 or 5 years older, 6 years older.
Okay.
And, the drinking was just never, it was ahead of my time. And, the first time I got drunk, I was on a road trip with these guys playing in some tournament. And I got so drunk on gin Caesars, which is, a Bloody Mary in America, but these gin Caesars in Canada, that I said I'm never gonna drink again, you know. And so I was a drinker,
Yeah.
like casual, but it
Yeah.
wasn't anything that was out of control for me. Yeah, I got, lucky with speeding tickets and pulled over a couple times. Um, it's a different world now. I know I'd be in jail. I probably wouldn't have a career if that happened in today's age. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I wasn't the kid that everyone was like, watch out, this guy's, he's gonna end up in jail or on the streets.
Right on. So then fast forward, you kept playing hockey. You you had that in your mind. That's cool to have that as a north star and just kind of know that that's where you want to go. It's cool to have that kind of a direction. Um
It,
where
it
where did that take
well, so I was getting drafted. It was 1994. I was rated pretty high in the draft that year. So I had a pretty good shot at going to NHL training camp and making a career out of it. Not saying I was going to play in the NHL that year, but I was closer than I had ever been. So right before the draft, as I said, growing up, my dad, he'd been to a treatment center here, a treatment center there. It was always kind of hush hush. Like I never really knew what he was doing, but I figured something along the lines of going away to get sober. So he pulled me aside right before I was getting drafted. I was getting drafted in June. He pulled me aside in May and he said, "Hey son, if you're gonna be in the NHL, you don't need a drunk dad around." And he said, "So I've had my last drink." And I said, "Dad, that's really cool." I'd heard that before and I'd seen that before. He'd had bouts of sobriety. And I said, "That's really cool." And my dad passed away in 2016 on Father's Day, and he passed away with 21 years sober. Okay, so I had always had this thing where my dad was sober, and so I'd always kind of managed myself even around him. Like he was always out with us when I was playing on these different teams and whatever. But he was always so proud of me, and I know you can relate as a father, and me as a new father again, and
Hmm.
as a father, my girls are 23 and 19. You would do anything for your kids,
Yep.
but addiction is different. Like, would you do that for your kids? And us being sober can say we would do that for our kids. We have done that for our kids. They're a huge reason why I'm sober. But my dad did that
Hmm.
back then, and that meant something. I didn't know what it meant fully, but it really meant something to him, and it meant something to me, because he did that and he said that. So I trucked along from during my career. My first year was in 1995. I was a black ace, which means I was with the Devils when they won the Stanley Cup. I didn't play, but I was with them, so I was at the Stanley Cup party. I thought, man, I'm going to win the cup every year. And that was my first year, 95, and I retired in 2013. I still had a couple of years left on my contract, but I broke my hand, and I had it just ended my career. So in total, I would have played close to 20 years in the NHL. And
Okay. Yeah.
and I never wanted to do anything to jeopardize my career. I had a couple close calls where coaches were like, you gotta, hey man, you gotta ease up on the booze or whatever. I mean, I just thought I was being a young guy and a social guy and a glue guy, a team guy. Um, but really nothing was ever going to get in the way of me in my career as far as booze. Now I have a buddy who is one of my best friends, was suspended 4 times, the only guy to ever get suspended 4 times by the NHL for drugs and alcohol. The last time before he was getting reinstated for the fourth time, which no one had ever done, it's a three strike and you're out. He got reinstated the fourth time, and the night before he had his meeting, he got all coked up and drunk. That's his disease. Mine wasn't that. Mine was the opposite, where like I'm not going to let this. By the way, that's been my guy in sobriety. He's the guy who said, if I can do it, you can do it. Get your head out of your ass. Um,
Yeah.
and so what happened though with me is when my career ended. My career ended with an injury. I had a lot of injuries when I played. I had 24 surgeries, shoulders, hands, knees, abdominal surgeries. I
Wait,
had it
what was your
all.
nickname when you played?
It was the hammer. Um, so I could mix it up a little bit, with the gloves off, and I could shoot the puck hard. And so one of my teammates, Lyle Odeline, gave me that nickname, the hammer, when I was young. And there's worse things to be called. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, man, it wasn't. It was. So towards the end of my career, when I was starting to get all these injuries, I was starting to get older. I was starting to get tired of it a little bit. It was starting to become more of a job than that thing that I loved with all my heart. Um, I've been prescribed pills, and obviously coming back from injuries, yada yada. Then I have another injury, more pills. It still didn't
Yep.
really affect my career till the end, till the day that they said, "Hey, here's your two options. You can try to rehab this. It's not gonna. Chances are not very good that you're gonna come back, or we can get the surgery done, and you're gonna be done." And at that point, it wasn't much of a choice. I was tired of rehabbing. I was tired of, you know, coming in, spending these long days at the rink, and the reward was playing, and it wasn't looking like that was
Yeah.
going to be on the docket for me. So I was like, I'm good. I understand. And that first day after I had my surgery, when I woke up and I didn't have anybody to answer to, there wasn't a coach I had to call. There wasn't a manager. There wasn't a trainer I had to ask what time I have to be in. There was nothing. My phone was silent. Um, that was when it all started for me. That's when it really took over my life. I didn't think so at first. It was harmless. And yeah, man, that's the rest is history.
So as as I try to walk people through the crash a bit, that's when it started. So rather than dredging up all of the heavy details of like how it progressed, where was the point where it was the crash and you kind of knew it was time for something? Or were there a couple crashes?
Well, I knew towards the end of my youth, like if I was taking so many pills. So it's important to say I'm a drug addict, right? I'm an alcoholic, there's no question, because if I have 2 beers tonight, I can handle it. But if I wake up tomorrow with a headache, I know what I'm going to do, and it ain't take a couple Tylenols. So I'm an alcoholic,
Yep.
and I don't need to test that. I know that, but my preference was pills, and because again, going back to all my uncles and dad being an alcoholic, I didn't like the sloppiness of it. Where pills, I was just taking pills, and I didn't smell like booze, and I could be social. And
Yep.
until, towards the end of it, I mean, I wasn't being social. I was an isolator. I hated my life. I was taking so many pills that I would be, you know, withdrawing in 3 or 4 hours, and I have to take another handful of pills. So at the end of it, I knew it had to come to an end. Um, it was super expensive, but also I just knew that I couldn't keep up with it. I was getting sick, just all that. And so the crash really happened. I was coming back from Mexico, and I forgot that I had bought a bunch of stuff down at the Mexican pharmacy because I would travel with 1,000 pills. And if I got down to the
Yeah.
last 500, I would be
Hmm.
panicking. I'd be like rationing, you know? And so I went to this Mexican
Yep.
pharmacy one time and had all these pills in my backpack. And I was traveling with my girlfriend at the time. And because I'm Canadian, our boarding passes, she US and I was Canadian, so our boarding passes looked, or our boarding passes, mine had an X on it through my picture. I'm like, fuck. So I said, hey, I think you got to take my backpack through customs. And she's like, you're an idiot. No. And I'm like, okay. So anyways, I get through customs, and we get home, and I woke up like the next day, and I just seen, it was the first time that I seen that I was really hurting somebody. And I was like, all right, I'll go to rehab. And so that was in January of 2017. Um, was my first rehab, just to get the heat off, just to
Yeah.
just to get the heat off. Yeah, mom, I'm doing okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Right. Um, and I think I met you probably in that time that I had a period of sobriety. I was sober for about 7 months, and July 4th rolled around and had a couple drinks. Right. I was like, well, I can drink. And then the next thing
Yeah.
you know, I'm off again. So I was back in rehab in September of 17, and I had a really, really bad experience with that. I had a major delirium and psychosis, and I was in the ICU for 5 days. I was in the hospital for 14 days. I snapped out of it one day, and I looked at the board in this room, and I had two security guards in there because I guess I was ripping out all my lines, and
No.
is making people scared.
Yeah.
Only because the guy from the NHL, the head guy from the NHL who ran the substance abuse program, had come to the hospital, did I not end up in the psych ward. So he said, "Look, he'll be fine." He pulled some strings, and they didn't put me in the psych ward because I definitely deserved to be there. So I woke up and I see the board, and it says 2017, and I'm like, I thought it's 1993. And like that's where I was at, right? And so I came
Oh
out of
my.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I came out of that. I stayed sober for a couple years, and that's when you and I had really, because I had some time. I was getting some time, and you and I were starting to talk, and you told me you were sober, and I thought that was so cool. And you told me, your life's gonna get big, and I'm like, we'll see. Here I was this famous hockey player with money, and I lived in Malibu, and I had all this stuff. Like, how could my life get better than that? Because here I am, I can't drink. I can never drink at my birthday. I can never drink at a Super Bowl. and you're telling me life's going to get better. I just wasn't really buying it yet. So I'd stayed sober for a couple years, and after a couple years of not doing any work, not doing anything fully. Step one, sure, admitted I was powerless. Step two, yeah, came to, believe a power greater. I always believed in God. Yeah, sure. Like
Yeah.
a guy like me, God had to be in my life to put me in the position to be a professional hockey player, to marry this, actress. And so I always believed there was God. I was just using him all wrong. And so, it was pretty easy to do those things, but write stuff down and admit I'm wrong was like I wasn't quite ready to get there yet, right? I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't want to
Yeah. I
dig in
get
with
that.
that. Yeah, so um shocker, I went out after a couple years, and it was in Gaza, and again the crash was it was my sobriety birthday is July 4th. So I just got 6 years back, 2020. And so I just got 6 years back, and we're gonna go to a July 4th party the next day. So it's July 3rd, we're going to a party, and my wife, who I met in my first rehab, um, she stayed sober the whole time. We reconvened and met up again, because in that rehab that we were together, I was there for 28 days. We had lost like 5 or 6 guys in that 6 months. And so when I came over to that second rehab, she's like, "Okay, idiot, you ready to get sober?" And and I said, "Yeah." And she kind of, we started going to mixed meetings, and so she was a big part of my sobriety, coming out and being sober for those 2 years. So when I relapsed, she caught me. I had a bunch of pills in my pocket, and we came home, and I admitted it to her, and she sat on the side of the bed, and like I told you, I seen that I had hurt someone before. I looked at her, and she said, "I didn't sign up for this," and that's, I just didn't sign up for this. And the pain that she was in, I looked, and I'm like, God damn it, like, how could I hurt someone that cares so much about me? And that was it. I believed her when she said she didn't sign up for it. I believed her, and I didn't want to lose that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so she's been sober, and like I said earlier before we were talking, it's like, got a healthy home, I got a healthy relationship. I love my wife. She protects me in rooms I'm not in. I protect her in rooms she's not in. Um, we got a healthy 2.5-year-old little boy who we've worked hard to get. As we get older, um, having a baby isn't guaranteed. We've been down this IVF journey for 5 or 6 years now. We've been unsuccessful many times, but we've got a miracle in our house, and we treat him like a miracle. And he has a safe
Hmm.
and a loving house, and parents who are accountable, and he knows we love him. And to me, like, my head was just in the wrong place. I used to think that rich meant stuff. It meant having cars. It meant having the house on the lake. It meant, having money in the bank, and wearing nice clothes, you know. And that's not rich to me anymore. Rich is those things I just
Hmm.
told you. It's looking, watching a movie with my wife, and I just looking at her and saying, "I love you, man. Like like you're my person."
Yep.
And waking up in the morning with my little guy, my wife, she does all the heavy lifting. So I wake up every morning with him, and I get to see him. He says, "Good morning, Daddy. I love you." And it's like that, my God, like, I never thought I'd have that again, because I swore when I would never get married again. I would never have another child. Like, what? And so to have these things that it's
Hmm.
like, what do I know? What do I know? It's and me again, right? I know what's best for me.
Funny how
If
you made a
everyone would just
plan
do
and
this.
God had a real plan going on.
He said, "Ha, that's funny. That's a good one." And he just turned me right around. And like I told you, being my sobriety has a lot of things connected to it, which is my physical. Like I have to be in a gym, I have to be active, I have to be taking care of myself. I've been an athlete, most of my life, and it's just active. I have to be active, or else I'm gonna sit around and I'm gonna start not feeling good, and then I'm gonna get in here, and it's over. And
Mm-hmm.
the recovery part of it, I go to a lot of meetings. My life is busy, as you know, and it's not an excuse for anything, but I only sponsored two different guys. They've both been in the same profession that I used to be in. Um, One guy thinks my first guy is doing pretty good. My second guy is doing incredible. And when, people used to tell me that the service part of this thing is where you really get the magic back. I'm seeing that, and I'm seeing meetings where people come in, and I hope someone watches this podcast and thinks like, man, like I'll say this: if I can get sober, if Sheldon Souray can get sober, I promise you anybody can get sober. Like I was that hopeless. And I just hope that anyone who would see this would just know that it's possible. And these things that I used to hate, walking into these AA things and seeing these slogans on the wall: a day at a time,
Yep.
service,
Yep.
to the and dude, if those aren't the cornerstones of sobriety, I don't know what is, And so I'm all in, man. I'm all in. My life has gotten big, it's gotten great, and I'm so grateful for it. So grateful for
Hmm. Yeah, you're part of a clothing company that is wonderful.
it.
I mean, I gotta say, I love your stuff.
Yeah, uh they're doing great. That was a fun thing to be an ambassador for those guys. Those guys are doing great. Again, it's funny, and I'm sure you've had this experience. It's funny who falls off and who stays when you get sober. The people you
It is.
think, right? The people you think, oh yeah, that's my boy. And you're like, doesn't
Yep.
bring,
No, I couldn't
you're
agree more.
yeah, you're like, what's it like, a balance? You're a pro or a con, right? You're a credit or a debit in my life. And that's I got everything I need under my roof, dude. Like I really do. And I got a bunch of great friends. I play golf pretty much every day with guys when I can. I got a pretty good job where I'm with a great company that helps me, meet people and sell some real estate, and have a nice lifestyle. And it's funny because, I mean, I met you in this company. The guys who started Casamigos. It's like it's such a oxymoron that here I am sober, representing a real estate company that also the owners had founded this tequila company. Uh,
Yep.
and so people, excess drinking and everything, and they're like, man, dude, you don't drink. How can you, dude? It's so easy. When I go home at night, it doesn't, I make a joke now. It's very simple. You don't have a shot. I said, boys, if I have a shot, we're going to Cabo tonight and all bets are off. We might not come home, and then they start laughing, and,
Yep.
and then they get it. But it's true.
Yeah.
I'm half
Yeah.
joking.
Well, yeah.
I'm only half joking.
Right? No, I mean it's probably likely that you or I could have a beer tonight, but by tomorrow it's probably two, and then 3 days from now it's 12, and then it's a handful of pills, and it's everything else. No, I
That's right.
I went down that road a few times. Say, oh, maybe I can have
Mhm.
one, and it that's what got me to where it is. I finally accepted that no matter which way I try to travel that road, I know where it goes, and I'm done doing that.
You just play it
But yeah,
forward. Yeah, it took me like 9.5 years to get 6 years. And I heard something in a meeting once when I first came back this second time. I mean, I've relapsed 3 or 4 times. I mean, it's a
mhm,
huge part of my story. It's a huge part because the last time when I came in after having 2 years, and boys, I got it. Well, you should get a sponsor, you should get a steps. I had a sponsor, but he was a buddy of mine. He wasn't really, kicking my ass to get into the work. He was, but he wasn't pushing me too hard. He didn't want to make me whatever mad or go out or whatever. Um, but um, but yeah, man, it's just I don't know. The relapse is just a huge part of my story, and to finally get it, it took, for me, it took a step before step one. I just had to concede to my innermost self that I am a drug addict and I'm an alcoholic.
Yep.
That's it. Just remember that, and everything else is going to be, you'll go from there. Like you said, I don't need to play the tape forward. I did, and it got me back in rehab. It got me back to my wife on the bed crying and saying I didn't sign up for this. Um, but yeah, that's what I was going to say is when I came back into these meetings, God, I felt like shit coming back. And after telling these guys how great my life was, I got it, guys. Yeah, and when I came back, I'm like, God, I feel like I had so much guilt and I was so ashamed. And I'm like, these guys are going to think I'm such a clown for, telling them I had it and acting like this big shot. And I came back, man, and it was the most beautiful thing. They're like, hey, we're glad you're here. We're glad you're here. And I was like, man, okay. I owe it to
Hmm.
myself. And I certainly owe it to people who believe in me to say, like, I'm glad you're here because I felt like I didn't deserve that at the time.
Yeah, nope. Nearly the same exact story. After 18 months, I went out for 6 months and it escalated right back to where I was. And then I called my sponsor and I was like, who I hadn't talked to in 6 months. And I said, I can't do this anymore. And he goes, I hope it fucking hurts enough this time. And it did.
That's right.
And
That's
I've been
right.
sober ever since. And I still talk to
That,
him at least 2, 3 times a month.
yeah. Same. Same. I don't talk to him all the time, but I don't have these crises in my life. And I share the good things with him, with Ollie and his golf, like my son and his golf swing or something. So we share life, but life's gone on. He sponsors other guys. He's a sober companion for a guy. He has been for years. So, he's got things, but what I love is he knows that I'm doing okay. He knows
Yep.
that he doesn't have to check up on me and make sure I'm doing this or I'm going to meetings. He knows I'm okay. And man, I love the guy for it. I remember coming back and here's a guy, he's a stand-up comedian, he's got a big life. And he said, listen, dude, this is what we're doing. Every Tuesday, we're reading the book. So I don't care what you have going on. You're taking an hour every Tuesday and we're reading, and then we're doing this. And then I want you to write out what this means to you. And I'm like, yes, sir. I didn't even, what? Like, question. I just fucking did it. I just did
Yep.
it. I was coachable again, right? I was coachable again.
Yeah, there you go.
And,
Coachable.
eh,
Exactly.
yeah. And then my life just started and for anyone getting sober, I think I would say this is that you're doing better than you think you are. You come in and you see these people who have time, at least I did, have 10 years and 20 years. And goddamn, this guy got 38 years. And you only got like 27 days and you only got a chip for 30 days. Man, I only got 90 days and people keep telling me I hated that, I resented that. You're the most important guy in the room. I'm like, fuck you. I'm not. The guy who
Yep.
has 38
Yeah.
years is, right? The guy
Yep.
who has 10 years is, not me. And now I get it. And so I would say to
Yep.
anyone who comes in, I'm like, you're here, you're in this room, you're doing better than you think you are, dude. And we see it. We see it. You might not see it, but we
Yep.
see it. And I love to be in
Yep.
that. I love to have that experience to see guys get it. It's
Hmm.
cool. Very cool.
I couldn't agree more, man. I am gonna make a suggestion to one thing that you said though. You were defining rich before. The one thing
Mhm.
that I would add to that, and the way that I feel rich is now I have the ability to give back to somebody else, not just in a monetary sense. I can be servants to others now. And in my
Mhm.
view of Christianity, I have taken care of myself and my family, and I get to be a servant to them. I get to be a servant to the people that I work with. I get to be a servant to people at my church, and I get to give back. So that to me is what
Yes.
richness is.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
All of
I
the
mean, they
things you
say
said, protector and leader and all that, yes, but servant as well.
I also, yeah, there's no question. Everyone says the same thing. Once you get into service, a lot of these guys who are sponsors, they're like, my sponsor said to me, he goes, you're going to sponsor someone. You have to do it. There's no, like, this is your responsibilities. You're going to have to sponsor someone at some point.
Yep.
And
Carry the
and I
message.
have, it's right. You got to carry the message. You got to make it attractive. And my guy's doing great, and I'm so proud of it. And that's it, right? I never realized the magic's in seeing other people get it. It's not me. I like, I don't got it. I would never say I got it. I'm a day at a time, man. I'm fucking, but I'm good. But I'm good. But I don't got it. But when I see other guys come in and the lights start coming on and they're back in their
Hmm.
house, or their kids are talking to them, or they're going to go have lunch with their kid, or
Right. Yeah.
their parole officer, whatever it is, it's like, fuck, that's so cool, because that was me. I wasn't in jail. I mean, I wasn't in like trouble with the law or anything, but I was in prison, you know and I didn't even realize it. And to see those, feel those chains come off, and to people trust me again. And now, now it's been, like I said, it's been 9.5 years of doing this thing. It hasn't all been bad. I've had some stretches in there, but I'm exactly like you. My relapse, dude, I just picked up right where I left off, and it got me into big trouble, because I'm like, well, it
Yep.
takes me this much to feel anything. The first time I used, I'm like, I think I'm gonna I think I'm gonna die. I gotta cut it back here a little bit, and um, yeah, man. But I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for guys like you. There's a lot of people, and
Thank
we were
you.
talking about it before, of not making it about us and telling our story. But I'm so glad that you let me know that you were in the program. I still think that some people don't love, um, especially, I just posted my 6-year coin the other day, and I haven't
I saw
really
that,
done that
and
ever.
I reshared
Yeah.
it. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, brother. I meant to say thank you. That was,
Of
I love
course.
you, man. And the reason I did that is
Love
I
you too,
just think
brother.
people should know that, like, it's possible, dude. Like, it's not nonsense. It's not. And you know what? If it doesn't work for you, man, we'll refund your misery. We'll refund
Bingo.
your misery, right?
Yeah. If sobriety isn't for you, there's plenty of other options out there. They're always waiting.
Go, dude, bro. But we're always fit. But this door's open, And for me,
Yep.
it's like that soft landing coming back. I'll never forget that, Bjorn. I was just expected to be met with this fucking hard hand of, like, you idiot. I told you. And that's not what we do, man. That's not the experience I had. It was completely opposite. And I still talk to some of those guys, and like these old timers. And I'm like, how, dude, if it wasn't for you guys, those first 30, 60, 90 days telling me what a great job I'm doing, even if I didn't want to hear it, or I thought you were like, is he picking on me? Like, I'd leave meetings sometimes going, is he, I got a
Are they
problem with this
fucking with
guy?
me? Yeah, they
You know,
messing with me?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And no, they're like, dude, yeah, dude, we're
Yep.
proud of you. You're doing good.
Same
And
way. Literally the same thing. I
yeah,
called the same sponsor. I went back to the same meetings and I was like, I am going to hate this because all these people are going to point and laugh like, told you so, or you knew this, or that. Like, nope. Everybody was, hey, man, glad to see
yeah,
you. It's been a while.
yeah,
Glad to see you.
yeah.
Glad you're here.
Glad you're back. I'm glad
And
you're back. Some people don't make it back.
this is
That's what I was
very
told.
true. I've seen way too many. And now I get to say that. Good to see you. Glad you're here.
That's right. That's right. Yep, man. So, anyways, I'm glad you shared your story when I was coming through, and you've always been that guy who's texted me on my birthday and stuff.
Hmm.
So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for our friendship, and I'm grateful for the friendships that I found in A. Like I said, my life looks totally different than I ever thought it was going to. Just thank you, God. Thank you, God.
I'm blessed to be even the tiniest part of your story, my man. I'm so happy to be a friend of yours.
Yeah, me too, bro. Thank you.
So let's look at life now. Like you've done so many things. I mean, Violent Gentleman was a part of it. You're in real estate now, and if I'm not mistaken, you just helped launch an NA beer brand. Speaking of,
Yes.
hold my
Well,
NA beer.
yeah, there you go. Unhammered. So the guy I was talking about, who got suspended 4 times, he's like my brother, Brant Myers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's really started this brand. We had this story, we were sitting here in Idaho one summer. and we're drinking these NAs on the boat, and he's like, "Fuck, I don't love the taste of why don't I do something like that, you know?" And I just encouraged him, and we're part of the story of it. I just didn't have the time to really put all the effort in, and he has been kicking down doors, you know, kicking ass and taking names. So just trying to help him with that, market it a little bit, get it in the right spots. Maybe Discovery will, you know, put it in, but I don't know. I think you just have to have something that you know, something that you believe in, you know, especially for my
Yeah,
buddy who's had a rough go. It's just nice to support your friends, you know. And with the BG stuff, I
always.
love those guys. They let me be an ambassador for them and stuff. It's like, you know, the one thing I've learned with starting these businesses and these guys who are really starting them, it's so funny how, like, we want, I was thinking with Brent in particular, it's like everybody wants a case of beer, right? And when you're starting out, you're just crawling and scratching to make ends meet, you know, to keep the train
Yep.
going. And I just think about how people who start companies, how hard it is, you know, with everyone wanting, they're proud of you, but they want, you know, they want a t-shirt, they want a case of beer, they
Yeah.
want these things. So
Yeah.
it hasn't been easy, but it's really been fun to see some people. And he's sober, Brant's sober, obviously.
Yeah.
And so it's
I watched some of the podcasts before with you and him before he started pushing off on the unhammered thing. So I love his
yeah.
stuff too.
Yeah, he's my brother. He's the best. He's the guy who told me, "Hi, buddy. Well, what's life like now? I'll show you what life's like now. Here's a little guy. Here's Ollie. Knuckles. He wants to give you Knuckles. Give him Knuckles. He's
Let's
boom.
do it, Ollie.
So he's just had a bunch of
Boom.
cherries. He's face, hey, your face. But he loves golf, so we play a lot of golf together. Uh, yeah, man. You know, this is it. Like being a dad and just Buddy, you know, we were saying it, right? My life is simple, dude. It's
Hmm.
there's no frills. I have a wonderful life. I get to be in Vegas. I get to be in Idaho in the summers. I got a wife that's sober. Um, I got a healthy little guy here. My
Hmm.
life is good. My life is great.
Please tell
Yeah, thank you,
Tess I
buddy.
said hello and I wish her the best, by the way.
I will for sure. She's standing over there yelling to get Ollie, but he wants to be a part of the big screen here.
Right
But
on.
I will. We still talk. We still make the best In-N-Out burger in the Pacific Northwest, buddy. The best.
Oh man, thank you. Thank you. I get to cook a little bit less now. Wife does a lot of the cooking at home, but I certainly don't mind jumping behind the grill or the smoker anytime.
And one of the best to do it.
Thank you. Thank you. Very honored, sir. All right. Well, Sheldon, thank you so much for doing this. Ollie, thank you for the guest appearance. I again, I've said it a couple times, but I'm so blessed and thankful to be a friend of yours, and I love you, dude.
Same, buddy.
So
Exact
I'm
same.
wrapping this up. Thank you everybody for joining Crash Podcast episode number 12 with my man, the legendary Sheldon Souray. And if you are looking for Sheldon, he is super easy to find on either Google or Instagram. What's your Instagram? It's Sheldon Souray, right? On
I
Instagram?
think it's Sheldon Stray 44 on
Okay.
Instagram. Twitter's at
And
SRA, I think. I'm never really on
okay.
it, but I have one.
And this episode will be dropped next Wednesday. So I forget the date. Anyway, um, next Wednesday, I will post some sneak peeks before then. And thank you all for listening. If you are having trouble with alcohol, drugs, or any sort of addictive, please reach out. DM me, follow me, just shoot a comment. I will DM you if you need it. I'm happy to sponsor and or coach or point you in the right direction if neither one of those is right for you. Thank you all for listening and have a blessed evening.
You're the best, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you.